and welcome to another Tale of Woe. I'm your storyteller Tim, and today we'll be continuing the Campaign 1 tale. In the last session, they managed to get themselves out of the Tomb of Horrors, and this was where the second part of the campaign really kicked in. Now, you may find this a little bit sadistic for a starter campaign, because really that's what this was, but what I decided to do was I really wanted to put the group into a really, really difficult scenario. And one of the scenarios that I'd always loved, just reading back on a few of the previous edition storylines, was the Apocalypse Stone. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Apocalypse Stone was an incredibly, and I mean like an unbeatable story, where it was literally a transitional storyline. So I believe it was second edition was coming to an end and third edition was about to begin, or something along those lines. It was a transitional storyline. One edition was ending and another edition was beginning. And so what they did was they created the story for high level characters, and I mean high level characters, in order to basically end the world, so that once the Apocalypse Stone storyline came to an end, the world was completely destroyed, and then you could begin in the new campaign setting, in the new edition, which I thought was a pretty cool concept. But what I did was I took elements of that story. The primary elements being the Stone of Corbinet, the main villain, Garloth, which I changed into Ricktavio, hence was the villain that everyone had encountered previously, which was inside the magic ring that Nuru had. And then I used the setting, the castle, and the concept, the theory, or the not the theory. What's the word I'm looking for? The premise, the way that this story would come about, and all of the additional plot elements. So it wasn't quite the Apocalypse Stone, but it was the Apocalypse Stone. Just a brief background for those of you that are interested or do not know this scenario. The Apocalypse Stone is a stone where, when the gods finished creating the universe, they had this stone, and this stone was like the linchpin, or the basis, or the pin. No, not the linchpin. What pin am I looking for? The foundation. That's what I'm looking for. The foundation in which all of reality was built. And it holds all of the planes together. So you have the prime material plane, you have the outer planes, you have the hells, you have everything else. It's all held together by this particular stone. Now, once they finished creating the universe, and they had put everything all together, they didn't know who to entrust this stone to. None of the gods trusted each other, so they decided to have basically a competition to see who would which god's champion would be worthy of guiding this stone. And none of the gods' champions are able to take the stone for themselves. So, and then a human comes forth and say, "I serve no god, but I am the best of man, and I believe that I would be able to take the stone." And he sieges the castle, and he wins. And so he and his progeny, all of his line, henceforth made keepers of the Stone of Corbinet. It gives them immortality. Well, near. Yeah, it allows them to live long enough, as long as they need to, in order to protect the stone, and give them a whole heap of more powers. And this man, I can't remember what his name was now. I think it was Elaine. It may have been Elaine, but he was the one that became the king under this castle. The other thing about this castle as well is that it teleported around the place, so it was never in the same place twice. thus making it incredibly difficult to track down. That's why the gods were having so much trouble, but this guy was able to do it. And then, as time goes on, the king has two sons. One of them is the eldest son, who is named Garloth, and the second son, which I cannot remember the name of. I'll just call him. I think I actually called him Elaine the Second in this storyline. Again, I just took the gist, and but yeah. So when it is time for the king to abdicate the throne, he sees that Garloth isn't really selfless enough to take on the responsibility of guarding the stone, and so he gives it to he gives the right of to become king, his crown, to the younger son, and this displeases Garloth, and he gets incredibly angry, and then he comes back and sieges the castle, turning every single one of the members of the castle into these incredibly powerful monsters. Now, in the actual story, it's something like there's like 4 dragons, 5 beholders. The all the horses in the stable are nightmares. The guards are massive trolls. The queen he turns into a Medusa. He turns the serving staff into succubi. And then the king, his father, or I should say, sorry, his brother, he wasn't able to kill him, but he was able to break his mind and turn him mad. But where I changed the storyline is that he wasn't able to turn him mad until, like, it was like a simultaneous thing. He managed to cast Garloth or Ricktavio into the ring which Nuru found, and the way that this castle worked is, rather than appearing on land, it actually floated. It appeared in the clouds. And so when as they're having their massive fight, wizard battling, flying about, he's enchanted into the ring, the king is turned insane, and the ring tumbles to earth. And so everyone in the castle is insane. They've all lost their minds. They can't remember who they are, but they do know that they need to protect this place. So Ricktavio, now inside the ring, the first person that finds the ring, he sets the first phase of his plan in motion, because what he discovered as well was that when you are sworn to protect the stone, or the members of his family, they can protect the stone, but they cannot take the stone for themselves, but they can be given the stone by someone else. So the king was the one that possessed the stone. He then gave the stone to Elaine II. Elaine II was able to possess the stone. He placed it in the castle keep, and thus the line continued. So even though Ricktavio Garloth wanted the stone, he couldn't take it for himself. So then he sets about the second part of his plan. So he has, for the most part, taken out all of his family members. They're all stuck in the castle, and they cannot hinder his plan, but he needs someone to claim the stone for him and give it to him. So what he does is that within the ring, the first person that he possesses, he manages to get this person to start spreading tales of this castle, so that everyone knows about this thing. He starts spreading the great tales of that if anyone can find this castle and defeat its defenders, they will get whatever they want. All of the great heroes of legend are the ones that have gone through this castle and taken the stone for themselves, and once they return with the stone, they have been given whatever it is that their hearts desired. So then this story becomes told to by the bards, and then other bards begin to disseminate this story about the place. Um, Once this person had finished his job, he realized what Rick was up to. He attempted to remove the ring and get rid of it in order to stop Rick's plans. Rick then incinerated his body, and then Nuru came about the body, and thus her part in the plan became, or their part became part of the plan, as it were. So Rick is now attempting to guide Nuru towards this thing, but then when he found out that he could actually get out of the ring, he didn't need to guide someone passively, he could actually do it more actively. So now that he had his own body by stealing the body of Mordenkainen, he follows the group passively throughout the different areas. And once they get out of the portal of the Yawning Portal, there is a bard there saying that I have seen the castle. I have seen the castle. It has been seen nearby. And so he performs and tells the story that I just recited to you, but a lot more better, of course, because I'm sort of rambling. And once they hear about this, the party goes out searching for it. Well, but the other thing that they were going to do is that there was a town that needed monster hunters, which was near to where Wallflower's old village was. And so they decided to go on their merry way to help out this old town. On the way, they are stopped by this angel appears to them. This guy in golden glowing armor and wings, and says, and he calls himself, and he actually calls himself Garloth. He calls himself Prince Garloth. Now, this was just me using the name because that's who he was, but they do not know who Prince Garloth is, and for the sake of the story, their villain is Ricktavio. So, he goes, I am Prince Garloth. I am an avatar of the god of justice, and it has been decided that you, worthy adventurers, have been deemed worthy to undergo the trial of the stone. And then, of course, they know about the stone, and he explains to them that if they can conquer and kill everyone in the castle and take this stone and bring it back to him, he will give them whatever it is they want. So they say, cool, sure. And in order to help them find the castle, he gives them an imprint. It's like a circle on their hands, which is basically a compass. And it points the direction, and every day the direction changes, because, of course, the castle is teleporting about. Now, I rolled up it was like a percentile chart that I rolled up, and I think it was like 90%. So it was like a 10% chance. So if I rolled 91 to 100, the castle would appear within a mile of them at dawn. 3 days travel after meeting up with Garloth and getting this thing, the castle appears right in front of them. So, okay, they're going there. But it is up in the clouds. So, what was it? Wallflower had her broom of flying. Nuru had her levitation belt. Selena could actually fly. She had wings. And Give had a instrument of the bard, so he could also fly. So everyone just flew up there, and then they began their siege of the castle of Pershar, I believe it was called, if I remember correctly. We'll just call it Castle Corbinet for now. It's not really important for the telling of this story. But so, and again, I toned this scenario all the way down because they're only like level 8-ish at this stage. They're not all that high. And this is designed to be impossible for 20th level adventurers. So there was no way they were going to be getting through this thing as written. But because this entire place has been turned completely insane, so it's a floating castle on a small stone island. And it is almost the way it's described is it's almost yin yang. It's half obsidian and half white marble, so it all sort of zigzags in and out. So it's all very it's all about balance, because this is the place that keeps everything. Ooh, no, stop that. This is the the place that keeps everything in balance. Anyway, so they the first encounter that they come across is the garden of this place. The garden itself is actually possessed, and the two hedges in the main opening of the gate are actually shambling mounds, which they managed to defeat. While Selena was nearly getting herself munched to death, but they managed to get through the two shambling mounds. In the main courtyard of this building is the central tower. Now, the central tower, the lookout tower, has been all the stairs have been completely destroyed. But in the original scenario, this is the resting place of three beholders, I should say. Sorry, not five, three beholders. I toned that down and made it one beholder and two gazers. So not quite so overpowered, but still a relatively rough challenge, especially for primarily melee fighters. In this scenario, though, Wallflower got hit with the death ray, the death aspect of the beholder, and she is dead. She's gone. No, they had no way to get her back, except for Pity, because Pittywink still had his one wish in his crystal, and so he wished her back to life. So that was another way where the deck of many things helped to both hinder and save this campaign. After the massive fights against the beholder and the two gazers, they make their way inside. Now, one thing I decided to do was, rather than have all of the staff be turned into like succubi and succubus or whatever, I had the two handmaidens of the queen. They were both succubus, and then everyone else had been basically turned into one massive, or groups of massive blobs, so they became gibbering mouthers. So the entire house is littered with gibbering mouthers, these two succubus, and the Medusa, who was the queen. If they had have gone downstairs, which they didn't do, they would have also found a what's it called? A gelatinous cube in the basement, but they didn't go down there, and they also avoided the stables, so they didn't get the nightmares, which again, helpful for them. When the two succubus came downstairs, they immediately managed to charm Give and give him a big smooch, and so he was almost immediately taken out by them. All of the other ladies in the group dogpiled on them, and killed one of them, and one of them managed to run their way up the stairs and ran into the chamber where the Medusa was hiding. As they're making their way through, it's described that all of this room is got like a bed chamber. The first area is actually an art studio. It's a whole bunch of paintings, and there's actually a clay structure in the center, and if they mess with it, it actually turns into a clay golem and attacks them. Nuru was actually being a little bit less, what's the word I'm looking for, impulsive in this scenario, so didn't happen to touch the golem, and so they didn't have to fight that. They were too busy chasing down the succubus. Making their way into the bedroom, they find that the whole place is shrouded in darkness, and all the mirrors have been smashed because Medusa. They Give leads forward with his shield. He busts into the room and immediately sees the Medusa, hits him with the her stoning aspect. He fails the check. He begins to fall to his knees behind his shield and turns to stone. And they have no way to bring him back. So Give is out. He's out of the game. So fighting with disadvantage over their shoulders with their swords, not looking at the things like, just get out of here. So they managed to fight and beat up the Medusa. So they kill the queen, they kill her handmaidens, make their way up to the next level where the library is and most of the other household staff. They come across the gibbering mouthers. not wanting to fight them, they actually place them, actually seal them inside of a room and barricade the door quite handily. I can't remember what they used. I think they just locked the door, to be honest. So, and because these things don't have hands, they couldn't get out of the room. So, problem solved. Um, Selena then casts her detect magic spell and is blinded by the amount of magic coming from the next floor up. There's a spiral staircase that leads up to the final tower where the king is and the stone. So, quaffing the last few potions that they have, they head their way back up to. They head their way into the tower, and they're immediately greeted by the insane king. Now he is actually a now. It's actually one thing I should have mentioned too. The two brothers that are one of the eldest and the youngest, they are actually twins. So he was actually born second, but they don't know what Rick originally looked like. So if they had have actually been able to get a visual on what he looked like originally, they would have been able to work out that what was actually going on here, but that did not happen. Who was it? It was Nuru had at one point managed to get a look at the original look of Rick's face when she was inside the ring and dealing with him. But because of the dirt and grime, her perception wasn't high enough, and so she didn't pick it out either. And he's basically saying, just whatever he's lost his mind. He just knows that you can't touch the stone. Do not touch the stone. And Nuru, being Nuru, I think she took a 10-foot pole and pokes the stone. As soon as the stone is poked, he goes into combat rage, like, no, you must not touch, and he begins to attack them. And he loses on the initiative and is immediately hit with a lightning bolt. The moment that he gets hit just once, he surrenders immediately. He's done in the fight because he is linked to the castle. As soon as he takes damage and loses the little bit of control that he has, the castle begins to fall out of the sky. So they're now doing like an anti-gravity thing, trying to grab this stone. He immediately turns invisible and disappears, so they can't find him. And through a few grabs and other bits and pieces, Selena manages to get the stone, and everyone books it down out of the castle. Now, what has happened is that the moment that they plucked the stone, or they took the stone out of the castle, they have immediately kicked off the apocalypse. Because this stone is what keeps the prime material plane and the outer planes together. So as soon as it is removed, all dimensional travel no longer functions. You cannot travel to any outer plane. You cannot contact your gods. So clerics in the world automatically begin to lose all their powers. But probably the biggest one is that bags of holding and other dimensional spaces no longer work. And this was actually a big thing too. Sorry, I need to go back. Because in order to get Give out of the castle, as he was turning to stone, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the portable hole, the bit of material. So they have the portable hole. They stick Give into the portable hole, and then Selena has the portable hole. But because they've pulled the stone out, the portable hole is now just a piece of cloth. They've lost Give. He's gone. He's no longer. He's stuck in the pocket dimension and cut off. They have no way to get back to him. The way that I also wrote this into the storyline was that, because it seemed logical to me at the time, was that most of the wizards in the world, or the high level ones, all live in their Mordenkainen's magnificent mansions, and so all the wizards that were in their mansions, as soon as that stone got pulled, are trapped there. They can't get back to the prime material plane. They're stuck there forever. or at least until the stone is returned. Another thing that I did, because I wanted to incorporate a more wider world into my world, if that makes sense, was because I'd also incorporated spelljammers. They hadn't come across spelljammers. Quick thing for those of you that don't know, spelljammers are boats that fly in space. So it's a magical sailboat. You have like a chair. You sit into it. You attune to it, and then you can magically fly the ship through space. And this allows you to travel between different dimensions rather than dimensional traveling. The way that different there's a whole thing like the world. You've got crystal spheres, and there's the wild space, which are areas that you know all the basically the astral plane is wild space, and the fire plane is actually the sun, and all this sort of jazz. But anyway. The other, the way that they had kicked off the apocalypse was not because they had severed the stone, but the main reason that the gods created the world in the way and created these crystal spheres was to keep the evil abominations that were outside of the crystal spheres from coming in and killing everything. And one of these things, or the one that they had primarily sealed this world off from, was Atropus. Now, Atropus is known as the world-born dead. It is actually the head of an unborn elder abomination or an elder god. I believe the idea was that before the gods there was this one being that was just traveling through space, and it was incredibly lonely. But it found out that it could break off elements of itself to create new elements and new gods. And so it traveled around and seeded the gods, these different elements from itself. But all that was left of it was death or unlife. And because it had lost so much, it now yearns to reabsorb these things back into itself, and all it knows is hunger. This planet, and so it's just like whatever is left, and then all of the like dust and other elements have just formed around this thing, and then as it travels through space, it finds life, and just it orbits around a planet and just sucks all of the life out of it, and just smashes into these worlds and begins to absorb all of the life, and just keeps collecting more and more detritus as it travels through space. The crystal sphere around the world, or around the solar system of this world, is what kept that out, and it was kept in place by the Stone of Corbinet. They've now turned the shield off, so the apocalypse has begun because Atropus is coming to eat their world, and the gods are now no longer able to help them because they have been severed. They've cut off their connection. So they're pretty badly screwed. Ricktavio knows this, of course, but he is so obsessed with being able to rule. His basic idea is that, well, if I can't have the stone, then no one can have it, and if that means that everyone in the entire world and the entire universe that we currently live in has to die for me to possess this thing, then so be it, because it is my birthright and I deserve this. Anyway, they have the stone. They're fucked up majorly, but you know, they have to fuck up in order for there to be a story. They travel back down to the ground, and before them is Garloth, and he says, "You have." What is it he says? I can't. Basically, he says something like, "You have acquitted yourselves well and have proven yourselves as worthy. Now, all you have, but still, one more trial will. You have yet to pass one more trial, the test of character." And then, saying that, he puts out his hand and asks to be given the stone. Selena has the stone, and she just immediately gives it to him. And he closes up his hand and says, "Thank you, and as your reward," and he gives her diamonds. Now, these diamonds are wish spells. that he himself has imprinted into these crystals, one for each of the members. Everyone gets one wish, and she has two stone. Selena has two stones on her person. Because she has Give's stone and her own stone. Wallflower has a stone, and Nuru has a stone. So all four of them have wishes. They so immediately Selena opens up the bag, and Garloff just Ricktavio snaps his fingers. He's gone. He's out. He's completed his mission. He's basically won. He can just let them run about, and the world can kill itself because he's already done what he set out to do, and he's used them the way that he wanted to. So no need to piss them off, as it were. Because one thing you don't want to do is to leave angry adventurers. He could have killed them, but he's not. Yeah, he may be an evil genius, but he's not that much of an evil genius. And if he kills them, then there's no story. Anyway, Selena goes to open up the portable hole and finds that it's empty. And then she folds it back up, opens it up the other way, it's empty. And when everyone else opens up their because each of them has like a bag of holding, they're all open it up. No, nothing. So the first wish that Selena makes is she wishes for the dimensional spaces to be returned. This is not a wish that actually works because Ricktavio is the one granting the wishes, and he's not going to do that. The crystal lights up, turns to black, turns to dust, and the wish is just wasted. Nothing happens. Her second wish that she makes, I wish to have Give back. And this is where I lay my second trap, or my trap for further on down the road. But, yeah, I might as well say it now. So, because Ricktavio is still a little bit concerned that they may take him out, he does what is said, but he doesn't actually bring back the actual Give. Give is still in the portable hole, in the locked away dimension. He creates a clone variant of Give who will who's under his control. He can actually look through his eyes and see what they see. So they've got like a spy that can so he can tune in and find out exactly what the party's been up to all this time. But if it gets to a point where they're going to take him out, then he can turn Give to fight on his side. So right off the bat, that's the first part of his backup plan already in place. The second, and so of course, as soon as I say that, I said you see the statue of Give appear, and then it turns back into normal, and they have Give back. I don't recall. No, I do recall now. The other two wishes, and this is where I said about sort of breaking Nuru and also messing with the party a little bit more. But again, this is Ricktavio granting these wishes. Wallflower wishes for her mother back, because that's always been her quest. She wants to know what happened to her mother, because her backstory was that when she was young, her and her mother were chased out of a village by a bunch of people, for bad omens. You tieflings, rah, rah. Grab your knives and pitchforks. They chase them out of the town, and she was separated from her mother, and that's why she grew up in the Underdark alone. She makes this wish, and she gets a flashback, and she remembers where it was that she actually sees her mother running through this cave and into this iron door, and then the door closes behind them. And so she now knows what happened to her mother, and she knows where her mother is. Interestingly enough, it is already on their way. They're already on their way there, so yay for that storyline. But the other thing that it does is also it reminds her, or gives her back the memory which she had forgotten, that she wasn't alone in the Underdark originally. She did have a sister who was Selena, and so she is now once more reunited with part of her family. So tragedy and happiness all at the same time in the birth of the apocalypse. Nuru's wish. Now, Nuru was the eldest daughter in a set of twins. She has a younger brother, and every generation, as I've said before, they have to partake on this quest, which always the eldest has to partake on this quest, which leads them incredibly scarred, and it is a very arduous journey, and she didn't want that responsibility, and so she makes the wish that she wishes that she was not the eldest born sibling of her family. And so I describe a memory where she is hiding in a bush and she sees two children playing. She sees herself and her brother playing by a river, and the little girl tumbles into the river, gets floats downstream, and goes over a waterfall. And she sees herself in this bush watching this happen, and then she manages to scramble down, and she looks into the eyes of this little girl, which is her, and she absorbs the memories of this little girl, and then she looks at a reflection in a small pool, and she sees the face of a doppelganger, and then the face changes into the little girl. She removes the clothes from the little girl, she pushes the little girl down the stream, and lives out her life. And so, by making that wish, Nuru changes reality in that everything that she has done herself, but she was a doppelganger this entire time. At least this memory is pointing to the fact that she was a doppelganger this entire time. So that was how the party managed to set about kick off the apocalypse, and then I began my first steps in trying to psychologically break this party using the elements of the apocalypse stone, as well as the next book, which is where they attempt to track down Nuru's mother in Wallflower's mother in the expedition to the Barrier Peaks. And we'll talk about that in the next tale.